Welcome to the 23rd session of the Communication Reports and Council Oversight Committee. We are here in the West Hawaiʻi Civic Center in Kailua-Kona. It is 2:31 p.m. on August 4th, 2026. Present here in chambers are council members Kagiwara, Eustis, Kirkowitz, Inaba, Connolly, Kleinfelder, Villegas, Kimball, and I believe Councilmember Onishi will be joining us shortly. I'm the chair of this committee, Michelle Galimba. Do we have any statements from the public on agenda items?
Thank you, Committee Chair Galimba. We do not have any testifiers. So would you like me to proceed with Communication 977 or some other order of affairs?
Let's just go down the line.
Very good. Communication 977 provides the affordable housing agreement for Wong subdivision located at tax map key 24003-035 from Housing Administrator Keohokālole M. Costa, dated July 7, 2026, transmitting the above report pursuant to Section 1119A of the Hawaii County Code.
Motion to close file on Communication 977.
It's been moved by Councilmember Inaba, seconded by Councilmember Connolly Kleinfelder to close file on Communication 977. I believe we'll have the Office of Housing online. Oh, no, here, sorry.
Good afternoon. This is Ann Bailey. I'm with the Office of Housing based in the Kona office. And I'm here today to report on the matter referring to ordinance number 23-34, which was a rezone for a parcel located in Hilo. The trigger was the rezone. It's condition 0. We negotiated an affordable housing agreement for a 5-lot subdivision. The agreement is presented in the communication. Do you have any questions?
Councilmember Inaba.
Yes, thank you. For the excess credit that was purchased, who was that purchased from?
The excess credit has not been purchased yet. This is an agreement which outlines the intention of the developer to do option 1 or option 2. Option 1 is to purchase an excess credit. Option 2 is to build a rental housing unit. The completion of the we believe that the individuals will purchase a credit. That has not been completed yet, that transaction. It's still a corporation counsel. Okay. So when that transaction is completed, we'll report it on our quarterly report, which is coming up.
So maybe for the Corporation Council, this is the first affordable housing agreement that I believe has been transmitted since, or has there been another?
That's incorrect. We've transmitted quite a few.
Sorry, you've transmitted?
Quite a few.
Okay, so this might be the first that we are actually discussing here at Council, which I've asked that we do from now on just so it's agendized and we have the opportunity. But Corporation Council, just as a matter of, in light of the issues the county experienced for the affordable housing credits, I'm wondering how we can tighten things up, because right now the agreement offers 2 methods for satisfaction of the affordable housing requirement, either the acquisition of the 1 excess credit or the construction and rental of the 1 unit. Has it been the county's practice in the past to execute agreements when we still are unsure of their actual method of satisfaction, and it's just providing options in an agreement? And at what point would the council or the public be informed of which option was selected and how an affordable housing agreement was actually, or requirement, sorry, was actually satisfied?
I'm Nation Corporation Counsel, so I'm not quite sure. I do understand. Well, I should say that I believe the credits are reported to this body, and I think that's a recent development. But whether the developer would choose the alternative, I don't know the mechanism by which you all would have notice of that.
Ms. Bailey, do you have an answer to that?
In the agreement, we always provide two options because by the time a developer gets around to actually finding a credit to purchase, it's been verified and authenticated by our office, and that it can be used in this case. There's a bit of time passing. So there may be no credits available when that transaction is completed. Hilo side has very few credits available right now. So it depends on who gets in line first for whatever credits are available. And those are currently with Armstrong, which are formerly DHHL credits that can be used island-wide.
So I guess that's my concern is I still feel like there's a gray area here because what public record is available unless your office is contacted that allows us to know if and how an affordable housing requirement was actually satisfied. Right now we have the agreement which shows us the two options, but then when do we know? Because we have the reporting requirement for the excess credit transfers, which is done separately on a quarterly basis, I believe. But how are we to know? Because I feel like that's what kind of put us in the hole the last time is things were happening outside of the public purview, which is why we tried to provide these agreements here, which is why I have these questions now is like how do we know when and how they were satisfied?
Satisfied. So there's a release of an agreement that's executed between the county and the developer when it has been satisfied. Copies are provided to planning department at this point. Nothing has been provided to council because we're not required to do so.
Okay. So I think we maybe need to.
But it does come out in the quarterly report. Well, you'll see the subtraction and from one developer and the subtraction from the redeemer.
Okay.
So if you would like, I can work with housing just to maybe work out a system where it can be tracked and provided to this body.
Yeah, I mean, I totally understand that things could happen, right? So that's why we have two options here, but we're missing that link of the public reporting when we know someone has actually satisfied, because someone could transfer the credits and then still not completely finalize the affordable housing requirement being officially wrapped
I'll tell
up.
you what, as a developer, they want to get that release because they don't want to have anything to do with that condition on the ordinance.
Yeah.
So they're very, very active in pursuing the release.
Okay. So yeah, maybe we can have a discussion, Corporation Council, on how that release maybe is a follow-up to the agreement, or there's some actual public documentation to show that the requirement has been fulfilled. Because I feel like that's the missing link after this agreement. But this agreement does really inform us on the direction the developer intends to take to meet their requirements. It just doesn't show us what actually happens in the end, and recognizably so. We're not there yet, but we need to figure out how we can report that. So thank you, Ms. Bailey. Appreciate it.
Councilmember Villegas.
Yeah, I guess I'm just looking for this to be interpreted in laywoman's terms. So we have a piece of property that was zoning was approved to change it from agricultural to residential, correct? So they have the opportunity to build homes on this property, a total of 3. They end up with
Lots.
3 lots.
Right. Chapter 11 has, in 11-4, excuse me, 11-5, there's 7 satisfaction methods.
So essentially, their development, makes them required to provide an affordable housing component to this, right?
Right, but they have 7 options. So you can build on site, you can rent on site, you can have unfinished lots, you can buy a credit, you can donate infrastructure for affordable housing project, you can donate land.
Okay, so, but right now, what we're being asked to do is to approve, I'm just, thank you, Councilmember Inaba. I don't know if it helped or harmed, but I'm a little bit confused on the way this is coming forward, because now they're looking for approval of this. This is not an affordable housing development though, right?
No, this agreement is fully executed by the mayor, and it's negotiated by our office. So there's no further action that I'm aware of, is that you guys approved the ordinance in 2023, which was for the rezone. Then it was given to our office to negotiate an affordable housing agreement. This is the affordable housing agreement. We submitted it to council as a communication, which is required through Chapter 11.
Great, so they're basically, and thank you for helping clarify, this is to approve of the options that are now available to this developer.
We're not approving,
No.
it's a communication.
The options have been
Communication.
outlined. They can do option
Okay,
1
so
or
they
2.
have to do one of those.
So this is simply a communication to your office.
Got
to
you.
the legislative body here.
Thank you. I just want to point out one correction here under the now therefore, under section 1, statement, or number 2, it says developer has the full legal right, power, and authority to execute this agreement.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Just, in the land of loopholes, looking to make sure, I mean, I would like nothing more than for there to become actualized affordable housing through this project. But thank you for walking me through kind of how and why this has come to us in this format. I yield.
Seeing no other lights on, all in favor of closing file on communication 977, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion passes with 9 ayes. We can move on to 978, thank you.
Is there any testimony of communication 978? Hearing none, communication 978 requests a presentation on the status of virtual access for county boards and commissions from Councilmember Haleko Goro Inaba and Councilmember James E. Hustis, dated July 15, 2026.
Motion to close file on communication 978.
It's been moved by Councilmember Inaba and seconded by Councilmember Hustis to close file on communication 978. Councilmember Inaba.
Thank you. Councilmember Hustis and I recently attended a disabilities forum at the Kona Immune Center, where the question came up regarding accessibility, not just for the public to observe and participate, but also for board members to participate in different board and commission meetings. And I do want to point out that Resolution 287-23 was previously passed by the County Council, which requested that all board and commission meetings provide virtual access for public participation, live viewing, and post-meeting viewing. We did attempt to legislate this, to require it. The Corporation Council at the time advised that that may have been an overstep of the County Council's powers, so the resolution was passed instead. But the question remained, when and how will we get to the point where most, if not all, of our boards and commissions as a county allow for access via interactive technology. So Mr. Alameda provided communication 978.1, which is available in our pinkies, and Mr. Alameda, I'll hand it over to you to give us a quick overview of which boards and commissions allow for remote public participation, remote member participation, and then if and how folks can view it live or after the fact.
Mahalo nui, Council Chair Inaba. Mahalo, Madam Chair Galimba, Vice Chair Villegas, Council members. Mahalo for the opportunity. My name is Micah Alameda, Executive Assistant, Office of the Mayor. I will jump right into the handout that I shared with you folks, and we can just work through it from the columns to the left to the right. First and foremost, it's been the honor and privilege of my life to serve this Boards and Commissions program, which is housed in the Office of Management. And where I'm sitting right now, I'd just like to mahalo every person who came before me, who did this work, who provided support to this vast network, and then every person who will come after me. Because as you folks know, just as this body is, our Boards and Commissions program is one of the most front-facing elements to our government. It involves hundreds of volunteers who help us hire top-level executives here in our county who help us draft the policies for departments. So big kuleana here within this 30-plus Boards and Commissions network. Jumping right into it, we do have 30 active Boards and Commissions currently right now in the program. If you take a look at the third column, the remote public participation, that kind of outlines where the public can find these meetings in the remote world, which primarily it is on Zoom. So if you are a public individual who's looking to testify at any one of these Boards and Commissions that do take remote testimony, that is how you can testify, via that platform, which is Zoom. Currently, right now, out of the 30 Boards and Commissions that are active, we have 4 of them that do not provide remote opportunity. And those 4 are the Liquor Commission, the Liquor Adjudication Board, the Public Access, Open Space, and Natural Resources Preservation Commission, and the Tax Board of Review. However, I would like to provide context. We are bringing the Liquor Commission and the Liquor Adjudication Board meetings online. You can expect to see the September 2026 Liquor Commission on Zoom. Currently, we run Zoom webinar for most of our Boards and Commissions, and you can find those links, of course, on the agendas and on the county calendar. Moving on to the final 2 that aren't online yet, PONC. We're expecting them to be online in January 2027. Speaking with Shannon Arkitola and the PONC team, they are confident that we can hopefully get a virtual meeting for PONC in January 2027. And then that would just leave us with Tax Board of Review, which would be the only remaining board or commission that is active that wouldn't be online soon. And I can say that we are talking story with the real property tax staff. I had fruitful discussions last week, also with our Deputy Corporation Counsel, Kira Wong, who manages the counseling and drafting section. So we are looking at ways that we can get the Tax Board of Review online. Just as of right now, it is still a discussion, and that's where we are. No definitive answer on like PONC, where we're going to shoot for January 2027, and for Liquor Commission, where we're going to shoot for September 2026. And then if you take a look at the fourth column or the third column on the right, remote member participation. So these are the Boards and Commissions that are in the yes. Those are Boards and Commissions that do allow their members to participate via interactive conference technology, which is a full-on remote meeting. Yeah, so that's full-on remote. If anything were to happen to the platform that is streaming that meeting, then the meeting's got to get put on hold for either 30 minutes, whatever those rules are for that commission to get back online. And then if not in that proper time, then that meeting is canceled and would need to be rescheduled. So for those meetings that are in the yes, they are fully remote. For the meetings that are in the no, they remote such as this body does. Yeah, it's a fully in-person meeting, but the remote opportunity is a courtesy, right? So for this meeting right now that we're operating in, if this Zoom platform were to drop, we carry on. Yeah, I mean, up to the chair or the clerk, right? We could recess to give the opportunity for the public, but technically, according to Sunshine Law, this meeting can carry forward. So those are the benefits and the cons to having an interactive conference technology, full-on remote meeting, where our members can attend from the communities they serve. Yeah, which is powerful. That is so powerful, especially living on an island that's 4,028 square miles big. You know, we're bigger than the state of Rhode Island. And I think we're bigger than the state of Maine. We're close to Delaware, but they outweigh us by just a little bit more mass. But, you know, that just shows the sheer vast of our island, right? So having these members participate from Hawaii, from Ocean View, right? From Keohokālole, that's a dream come true. So I do see the benefits of being here in person, right? The discussions that happened physically in the room with the bodies and the energy, oh man, that's lightning in a bottle, right? But then that's, you know, for quorum, we gotta show up, we gotta be there. That makes it harder for our members to fully commit. Is having physical meetings all over the island that they have to attend in person, right? So I'm seeing the benefits of this very vast program, and ultimately, whatever the committees can do and the boards and commissions can do, I'm there to support, right? So just looking at the program that we inherited, there were a few boards and commissions that are now online that weren't before. If you take a look at the resolution 287-23, right? That will outline what was never online and now is, like the police commission, which back in January of this year, we just hired our police chief in the wide open with sunshine beaming in, hours-long meeting of testimony and the candidates up here one by one, oral interviews. That was all online by Zoom webinar. That was fantastic, right? And we're looking for that shortly with the fire commission. They're about to go through that same exact process, hire Fire One out in the open with the sunshine beaming in. Thanks to the staff, right? Thanks to the staff. And, you know, Councilmember Villegas earlier today in the meetings I was watching, you know, I heard you say collaboration. Yeah, it takes collaboration. And the boards and commission program is one that requires collaboration. You know, I cannot come in here, Ms. Bartolomeo can come here, Charmaine Shigemura can come in here, you know, Rose Bautista cannot come in here and think alone they can just shake it up. By experience, a year and a half, you need to work with the civil staff who are there doing the work when we come and go, right? It's them who are here making sure that the train keeps moving. Now I'm going to just move on to this final column, and I'm going to help make sense of it. I understand that it's confusing, and I realize that I submitted the wrong draft for this final column, but basically it just tells you what is live and what is not, but really what it should articulate for you is where you can find the post recordings of these meetings, yeah? And that's what I failed to outline there, which I will submit an additional communication so that it is clear to you. But really all that should say is either YouTube, right? So for example, the planning department, they house almost 37% of this boards and commissions program. 11 boards and commissions and committees fall within planning. Now, as we all know, planning is the gold standard when it comes to running online meetings, right? They have a fantastic, elaborate YouTube page. All of their YouTube meetings, all of their Zoom committee meetings are streamed to their YouTube, which for most of us who know, once it is streamed on YouTube, it is archived. So now that meeting is archived on their YouTube page, which is fantastic. I am now trying to model that. So we have a communications page in the mayor's office. It's called County of Hawaii Media, YouTube at County of Hawaii Media. I've now went into that YouTube channel and created playlists. And now we're gonna make playlists for every single board and commission that I can get my hands on, right? The recordings that I can get my hands on and upload into YouTube in the County of Hawaii Media page where we can find boards and commission recordings that aren't on the planning department's YouTube, right? Because like I said, they have 11 boards and commissions. So they're kind of the kingmaker when it just comes to doing things in boards and commissions. We just want to model that, you know, they clearly got it going on. So we just we gotta get everybody else on tune. The water board is one that they also do their own thing, like planning. They upload their meetings to Facebook. So you can find their live streams on Facebook Live. However, if you do want to testify as a member remotely, they do have ways for you to do that. You can do that by phone or contacting staff, and they'll send you a link to appear by camera. But aside from that, I will outline for you in this final column that I will adjust, and I'll provide for you where you can find the recordings for each board, committee, or commission, which I think should fix up this handout. This should have not even went out to begin with, column I, but I will make sure that it is updated.
Thank you, Mr. Alameda. And we do have our real property tax administrator here, and I want to say that the reason for the tax board of review not allowing this is sensitive discussion sometimes happening at that board specific to people appealing. Is that the case? And we have a nod yes there. So recognizing that reason for the tax board of review not allowing remote public participation. But yeah, I did say it 3 years ago when we passed the resolution that planning has and continues to be the model for public access to board and commission meetings. So we appreciate, Mr. Alameda, your providing of this, and then your providing of the updated column for, again, either live or post recording viewing. But again, if there's anything that we can do to help support your efforts in getting all of our different departments who oversee a board or commission into the same channel, whether it's YouTube or whatever it may be, please let us know, because I think it is very helpful for not just post viewing, but planning board and commissions do allow for immediate review of a meeting as it's happening live, which is actually more than this council does via our current platform, but we are also headed in that direction as well. So we look forward to this. I'll pass it over to Councilmember Eustace. Thank you.
Councilmember Eustace.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councilor Nava, for working on bringing this item forward. And Mr. Alameda, appreciate the details here and going through our very active boards and commissions. I know it's a big lift you have, and kind of managing that space and working with the different departments on providing this source and resource to community, an opportunity to engage with the county in a very public setting, as you mentioned. Yeah, so look forward to seeing that updated sort of report on the recording piece and seeing what that looks like. You know, this conversation, as Councilmember Nava discussed, it came out of a conversation, legislative forum, about equitable access to government and government platforms and our boards and commissions, where some community members are mobility limited, right? And they're unable to attend physically a lot of our spaces for one reason or another. Access across the county is challenging, especially if boards are meeting only in one place, physically in one place. So that opportunity to provide participation by members is a fantastic sort of lift for individuals in community that need that support, for sure. And I know some of the boards and commissions a little bit more prohibitive in terms of the items they're discussing, the work that they have to do, and sometimes it is paramount that they are meeting in person, and I understand that for sure. Yeah, the YouTube repository, really that only, as you mentioned, it's only with planning department at the moment, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and then in terms of your projection and anticipation for recordings of other meetings that have that Zoom capacity, is that something that you would want to house? Because planning does their own, and a lot of these boards and commissions sit with different departments
All over.
I'm curious your thoughts on what that may look like if you want to do a YouTube repository in this department or that department, or have it all sit, the remainder of them sit under the mayor's office. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Thank you, Councilmember. And you know, I've thought about this, and I think for the time being, I would prefer to just drive it onto one YouTube channel, which is one that we've already created when we came into office. That is where we put our 2025 community meetings that the mayor held. We put a couple of public service announcements on there. So I already just saw an infrastructure just sitting, so I kind of just took it. But then now that's on me to contact every point of contact in the boards and commissions program, which isn't a lot, but I mean, it's about 15 individuals that I would need to coordinate with to make sure I get those recordings so I can upload them to YouTube. Now, I do benefit a couple ways. There are more and more boards and commissions that want to utilize Zoom webinar, right? And the county, we don't have many Zoom webinar licenses. If I'm not mistaken, we only have 2. And one of them sit with us in the mayor's office, and another one sits with Mr. Relly in the clerk's office. But Zoom webinar, the features for host controls are premier, right? So less opportunity for hackers to try to compromise the meeting, which we've experienced in the last year alone. So for security and safety, Zoom webinar has been great, and a lot of boards and commissions are looking to utilize that. So I tell them to record the meeting and just save it to the cloud, which I have access to. I give users who utilize the Zoom license that I have the logins. So we all share the Zoom account, I should say. But yes, I would have to physically upload each meeting to the YouTube, which I'm willing to do.
And you'd prefer to go to that route versus live stream it right then and there and it's being stored on YouTube?
So I'm going to do that. So I've myself just yesterday figured out how to live stream from Zoom to YouTube.
Fantastic.
Right? The only thing I haven't configured is how to set up a live stream that's upcoming on YouTube. So if you were to go to our YouTube page right now, you wouldn't see upcoming live streams, right? But on Thursday, there's a fire commission meeting, a special one that's in this chamber that they're going to decide a lot of the process that they're going to use to hire the next fire chief. That special meeting is going to be in here on Thursday, and I'm going to live stream it as my first trial to YouTube.
Fantastic.
So hopefully there will be an automatic repository from Thursday's meeting on YouTube because I'm going to successfully live stream it. That's my goal.
And I wouldn't be afraid to lean on, our Department of Information Technology to support you in trying to get these tools active and, forthcoming. So yeah, I'm sure we have a lot of skill there for sure. Yeah, and I think there's definitely an opportunity. I mean, it's fantastic to see the remote participation pretty much across the board on a lot of these. Member participation, almost all, a lion's share of it as well, and it's moving more in that direction for some of them too. I think that could be more appealing to the boards that aren't active as well, right? I mean, some of that conversation was about the Elections Accessibility Needs Advisory Committee, and that's that providing equitable access and making sure that all members in community can vote and have the ability to vote and easily and safely too. So I think as you bring a lot of this technology into play, it provides that opportunity to stand up some of these other boards that may have been a challenge to stand up to. I think that's, I think you're still working on Cost of Government Commission. There are these different pieces that sometimes community members that are volunteering their time necessarily can't always get physically to these spaces. So if there's ever that opportunity to have all these tools working, I think it could really be the benefit of the county to really stand up some of the commissions that have been a little more challenging for sure.
Thank you, Councilmember. In my opinion, just because I serve as a secretary to several boards and commissions, the Youth Commission, the Arborist Advisory Commission. I help aging with the Committee on People with Disabilities. And, in serving in these roles, I found that it's almost easier to do remote meetings for our members to be remote, right? So ICT, Interactive Conference Technology. For me as a secretary, it's easier to run a fully remote meeting than trying to get people into a physical space, right? So for all the boards and commissions that I facilitate, we run remote meetings. Except for the Fire Commission, which I've been helping in the last month or two, just helping them with the Zoom and whatnot. But we really, we've seen staffing challenges affect this system. The Police Commission Secretary is also the Fire Commission Secretary, and that one individual falls within the HPD Ohana, but they service both police and fire. That individual moved on to a better role, which left a vacancy in that critical position, especially now that we're hiring Fire One. So I've stepped in, right? I've stepped into Kokua in ways that I can, particularly just making sure that the Zoom is up and running, making sure that it's recorded. So in many ways, I just physically just, I'm trying my best to not just provide level support, but to elevate us, yeah? One of the best parts about this job, council member, is in order for these commissioners to do their jobs, they have to be sworn in, right? And that oath of office got to take place for them to do this work. So to make it easier on these nominees or commissioners who are confirmed by you folks, I drive out throughout the island. I'm swearing people in police stations, here in Kona, in Waimea, and why police stations? Because there are government notaries in those police stations, right? So when I just put out the kahea and I'm like, hey, tita, kinkokua, nomination, they're more than happy to help, right? And that saves our commissioner, Shauna Ku'ulukukui, just last week, from driving all the way to Hilo, right? Who she get, Keiki get dental appointments. They get, they got to get back to school supplies they got to buy. So for her come all into Hilo, she's like, sorry, no can. But me, I go out. Here in Kona, I swear in a lot of people here in Kona. Jessie Jumalan, she is my savior. She's a clerk here who swears in so much people for me. But I'm not able to do any of this work. The work would be stalled if it wasn't for collaboration. And, it's beautiful work. Sorry, I can go on and on.
Thank you, Mr. Alameda. No, I appreciate your passion, your energy, and your willingness to kind of step forward and really, fill those gaps. So thank you for that, and I appreciate this. As Councilmember Inaba said, please let us know how we can support our boards and commissions, and any sort of insight that we can provide and assist you with kind of moving this forward. Let us know. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Chair, if I could just add this, it's never lost on me that Councilmember Kirkowitz is a product of our boards and commissions program, right? She literally went through that, yeah? She went through that, and now she's here, right? 4-term council member for Puna, arguably one of the most effective leaders, right? To come out of Puna and Hawaii Island. So she came through this program. She's considered what I would say an alumni, right? So what I would like to do in the time that I have, I would like to bring some of you on your availabilities into these meetings where we can just kind of get you to kuka, right? So one thing that I want to do is when I get the Cost of Government Commission active again, which will be very soon, and the next time I do that, Councilmember Kagiwara, I want to bring all remaining seats to you, the 3 names that I got to bring to you, I want to bring them one time and say, here we go. Can we just get them on an agenda and get the work rolling? I have Auntie Margaret Stanley already committed, yeah, so I just got to get people that can just help them do the work, and we're going to get that back active, all right? But yeah, I'm sorry.
Thank you so much for your energy, Mr. Alameda. I know you're working super hard to make it the best possible boards and commissions experience for our people that volunteer.
Real quick. Thank you, Chair.
Councilmember Kagiwara.
Yes, Mr. Alameda, can you do a quick plug for your and my favorite commission?
Yes, no, absolutely.
To make sure that we are getting the support we need from the council here.
Thank you, ma'am. Councilmember Kagiwara, as you folks know, she is an ex officio member on Hawaii County's Youth Commission, which hasn't met in the past several months, but we do have a meeting scheduled in the next couple of weeks, which we will absolutely use as a motivator to recenter us and get us back onto the mission. Right now, we do have expiring commissioners that are in various districts. Council District 2, yep, Sage, we have already talked about that. Benjamin Rudo in Council District 4, he's recently expired. Council District 5, we have someone that's interested in serving. Councilmember Cornelia Kleinfelder, I will forward you that application. Councilmember Galimba in District 6, Marcus Fonoi Moana, he's recently expired. And then Cote Baptista is expired, but he wants to continue serving, so we will reserve him in before he heads back to college next week. So those are the districts that have vacancies. And then in the mayor's portion, because as you know, the mayor can nominate 6 people. We have 2 seats that are open that have already been filled. And we have individuals applying from all over the island, from Hawaii Preparatory Academy. We have an individual from WEA who applied recently. So yes, I would say the energy is alive and well.
Thank you so much, because it has been really challenging. I think it might be one of the exceptions to the rule where Zoom is a really good thing to get more people. I think it's been a little challenging for folks who maybe need that energy of being in a room with each other to really keep going. The Zoom has I feel, had a little bit of an effect of, no, I'll get on or I won't get on kind of thing. And so as we look forward to everybody's new nominees and understanding that many people are, terming out and maybe they want to give a chance to the next person coming in to appoint that person. But it's kind of been a year like that where we've had people stepping off or stepping back and not had those seats filled and not been able to meet. So thank you for continuing to make the effort, Mr. Alameda, and work with these young people and try to get them together. Because I know when they do get a chance to meet, it is just magic and so exciting. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Councilmember Kagiwara. And yes, I'll just say one more thing on the Youth Commission. Maybe in future meetings, we could bring in some guest speakers, as in some county legislators, to help provide that boost. If you recall, we brought the mayor in one time last year for a meeting, which I think, it did something, right? So I think bringing another guest speaker could absolutely do something. Great idea. Thank you, Councilmember.
Good ideas. Anyone else? So all in favor of closing file on communication 978, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion passes with 9 ayes. We can move on to the next communication.
Mahalo.
Thank you.
Is there any testimony for communication 979? Hearing none. Communication 979, request presentation by Marlene Zoig of the PEPA project on the American Rescue Plan Act funding for early childhood systems from Councilmember Jennifer Kagiwara, dated July 16, 2026.
Motion to close file on communication 979.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Kagiwara, seconded by Councilmember Eustis to close file on communication 979. Councilmember Kagiwara.
Thank you, Chair. Just wanted to bring this presentation forward. They presented down in Pahoa about this, and I wasn't able to attend, but my staff attended for me and just came back saying that it was a really fabulous presentation and that maybe we should share with the entire council. I was able to connect with Marlene. And Marlene, if you don't mind, just before you get started, quickly introducing yourself and what organization you're from, and then all your team here, because I think it's very impressive that so many people flew over here for this and care about this so deeply that they made the effort to come here in person and be part of this. So if you don't mind just doing a quick introduction, that would be fabulous.
Just
Push the button and the green button, and then you can pull it right to you if you want.
So every time I talk, I have to hold it down?
No, just leave it. It's all good.
Got it. All right. Good afternoon, Chair, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, and council members. My name is Marlene Zoig, and I am with the PEPA project. And I think it's probably more accurate to say that we are here on behalf of Angela Thomas and the team that she has put together. So you have Angela Thomas, is Hawaii County's Early Childhood Coordinator. We have Doug Imig, who works for Friends of the Future. He does data and evaluation and is the writer behind some of the federal earmark and ARA funding that we're going to discuss in a little bit. Chelsea Ching, she's here, also part of the early childhood team. And we have Lori Smith. Lori Farrell Smith. My apologies. Yeah. So yes, we have quite a team here, pretty excited to share. And so mahalo for the opportunity to share an update on the county's investment in early childhood. So for the past 4 years, I have had the wonderful opportunity to facilitate the Pahoa Promise, which is a place-based initiative that brings schools, healthcare providers, nonprofits, government, and families together around shared goals for young keiki. Pahoa Promise is one part of the county's broader early childhood strategy and has served as a demonstration community for what coordinated action can achieve. So today, I'd like to share what the county's investment has made possible over the past 4 years, and that by investing in a coordinated early childhood system, we are working to not only improve outcomes for keiki and ohana across Hawaii Island, but we are also strengthening an essential economic and workforce infrastructure. So 4 years ago, the story begins a lot longer than 4 years ago, but when we as a group came together about 4 years ago, there were a lot of data points that we looked at. These are just some of them. But I think the most pertinent piece that comes out of this is that when we then sat with a number of organizations within the Pahoa community, I think the most salient point that came out of this is that you can't move the needle on any one of these indicators with a single organization. The only way to actually really do that is a multifaceted approach, almost like you have to do multiple things at the same time. And so our premise was pretty simple, right? What becomes possible when we can connect our resources into a bigger coordinated system? What greater impact can we achieve when organizations have trusted relationships, shared goals, and a foundation for working together rather than working alongside one another? And so we realized that even as it required a multifaceted approach, it also required better coordination. We had to find ways to reach across and bring together education, healthcare, childcare providers, nonprofits, and government. And so we set out to strengthen that coordination. And so from the county, right, the vision really that Angela was holding and stewarding, from a county perspective, the work has focused on 4 really big areas: capacity development, workforce development, family supports, and coordination and infrastructure. And there are a number of different activities that are happening within each of these pillars, right? In some areas, we work directly to increase the number of programs, number of services, just increase access, and even increase the number of books available to families. But most of where we have started to see impact is from working to better connect services that have already existed, to strengthen the relationships among partners, and to build the infrastructure needed to work as a system. And so by investing in both direct supports and the coordination behind them, we really feel that this initial funding that the county provided has really helped lay a strong foundation for a much better, more coordinated early childhood system. So this is a snapshot, and I always like to say it's bad data, it's best available data, so it's already outdated. But it gives you an idea, I think, of some of the work, the really hard work that has been going on for the past 4 years now. We've expanded access to childcare by supporting new family childcare providers, particularly for infants and toddlers. We have strengthened the workforce through scholarships and professional development, so more educators can enter and remain in the field. We've invested in families by connecting young children with books and early literacy through partnerships with pediatric clinics. And we have strengthened or worked to strengthen community coordination through initiatives like the Pahoa Promise, really to help families navigate services and to connect to opportunities. So when you look at each of these investments and each of these initiatives on its own, it strengthens a part of the early childhood system, right? Each of them in and of itself is pretty impressive. But really, when you look at them together, it's really working to increase our collective capacity to support children and families in Hawaii. So Pahoa Promise has been a demonstration community to address the question of whether a community could come together and improve outcomes when organizations work together around a shared vision, right? So bringing them together means talking about data. It means sharing data. It means aligning actions and learning together and continually refining work based on what we're learning. And Pahoa has helped demonstrate what coordinated place-based action can look like. And we're beginning to see some very early signs that this approach seems to be working. So again, bad data, best available data, but I think it gives you an idea of what happens when partners come together and they start having conversations, not just about their own individual organization outcomes, but they start talking about what is the collective experience that families have. What is happening upstream and downstream of me and the organization and the work that I'm doing, right? And when those conversations start to shift from individual outcomes to the collective experience of children and families and how working better together can improve it, then you start to see these little positive momentum impacts, right? And they might be just tiny in its own individual right, but when you kind of start putting them together, they really start to paint a really exciting picture. And so one of those examples is that we've been able to reduce the overdue well-child visits from 36% to 3.4% in 1 year. And that really has come through tremendous outreach and coordinated follow-up. It was led primarily by Hawaii Island Community Health Center, who's one of the very big and active partners of the Pahoa Promise Partnership. But a very good example of what happens when put our heads together and realize that overdue well-child visits really needed to move the needle, right? Another example is that when we started sharing enrollment data, just to understand how many seats are there in Pahoa. And by the way, when I talk about Pahoa and I'm talking about Pahoa Promise, the geographic designation is actually 10 community or 10 neighborhoods. That was what the partners had identified as the designation of the geographic boundaries. Another way to look at it is it's the majority of the areas that feed into Keonipoko and Pahoa elementary schools, right? So when we started just putting up a dashboard of enrollment data, where are the seats? How many seats are available? One of the things that we realized is that not only did we work to increase the number of early learning opportunities, but that the demand is there, and that we have a fair number of families who are on wait lists, right? And so they really want more access to programs and services. And when we started to actually talk about sharing data, especially across partners, we've realized that partners started to realize that they can identify where children are doing really successfully, but then also where coordination could be much better off. And so these are just some of the conversations that are happening that I just feel lucky that I get to be a part of, I get to facilitate. Families don't experience early childhood services as separate programs, right? They move from birth to healthcare, to childcare, to preschool, and to kindergarten. And so from this perspective, you know, as a collective community, when I say we, it really has been the collective of the Pahoa Promise and all the partners that are in that network. We've been working to really connect these experiences so families can encounter a coordinated system instead of disconnected services. And that no matter where a family enters, someone knows how to connect them to what comes next. And this collaborative culture has not only strengthened services for families, but it has also become a bright spot, and it's positioned Hawaii Island to attract additional investment, as well as some strategic partnerships. So one interesting and important outcome of this work is that it has positioned Hawaii Island to leverage additional investment. And so building on that current momentum, Hawaii Island has been able to secure federal investment, not only through the Child Care Disaster Relief, ARA, American Relief Act. 8.9 million has been earmarked, so to speak, for Hawaii Island. Think of a total of nearly 45 million that was secured for the state. In addition, there's a recent federal earmark of 1.37 million, of which about 300,000 is supposed to come to Hawaii Island. And that's all based off of the early work and the promise and some of the early findings that are coming out of not only the Pahoa Promise Partnership, but some of the other work that the county is doing across the entire island. The recent attention, so to speak, has also attracted interest of national partnerships like Save the Children and Strive Together. And it also has supported some continued investment from private philanthropy, such as COSASA and Weinberg Foundation. So 4 years ago, at least when this story started, right, a group of us invested in the belief that improving outcomes for our young keiki takes an entire community. And today, because of that initial investment, Hawaii Island has a coordinated early childhood system that's built on trusted partnerships, shared accountability, and measured results. We have a working example of this in Pahoa, and our opportunity now is to continue to strengthen what's working, to build on that, and to continue creating a future where every keiki on Hawaii Island has the opportunity to be healthy, safe, and thriving. Mahalo for your time. I'm here with members of the team, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Marlene. This is fabulous information for us to have. I guess you were talking about some of the federal funding, and I don't know, you can probably answer this, or I don't know if Doug can answer some of this too. You've been working on some of getting the funding, right? But what are the restrictions? Do we have some flexibility in that funding, and is it specifically for early childhood, and is it specifically for certain places on the island, or for specific things? Can you just give us a little more on that? That would be super helpful. And you can also elaborate if you see other pots of money potentially in the near future.
Good afternoon. I'm Doug Imig. I work for an organization called Friends of the Future. And so Marlene mentioned two specific grants. The first is a federal earmark, congressionally directed spending award that we were encouraged to write for by both Senators Hirono and Schatz. That award has now come through. It was a fiscal year 2025 award. It's for $1.37 million, and it was awarded to Early Childhood Action Strategy to support the development of Pahoa-like communities in 4 new places, 1 in each county. So there is a boundary around the use of that money. It is to model the work that Marlene described in Pahoa, and to see if we can replicate, export, and fit that same vision of a place-based partnership that's community-driven in another community. And there have been several communities on Big Island that have been under consideration. The second, and I believe our colleague Benson has a meeting that later today or this week with ECAS to discuss where that might take place and what it might look like. The second award that Marlene mentioned is a disaster relief award that came from the Administration for Children and Families in response to the federally declared disaster for the North Kailua fires in August of 2023. That award was made to 3 different counties, Kauai, Maui, and Hawaii Island. Maui, obviously, for their fires in 2023, and Kauai for their flooding that year. The total award is, as Marlene said, is for $44.9 and change, of which $8.9 million will come to Hawaii County. the terms for how the money may be spent are generous. It allows for infrastructure development. It allows for community capacity building efforts. It allows for early language and literacy development efforts. And I still can't believe there's this beautiful phrase in the authorizing language that says, we don't fully understand the needs of individual communities, so we look forward to you sharing with us what your needs would be to create a sustainable, replicable, strong early childhood care and education system that would lead to stronger kindergarten readiness and third grade achievement outcomes.
Great.
Yeah, and if folks want, I can also speak to some of the open granting opportunities.
Just quickly, maybe just touch on just a couple.
Yeah, so we're pursuing relationships with 4 collaboratives. One is the Strive Together Network, a second is Save the Children, the third is the Education Commission of the States, and the fourth is, I've forgotten, let's see. The Partners for Rural Impact.
Oh.
And Partners for Rural Impact is the federal fiscal agent for the Community Schools Movement. Save the Children is the federal fiscal agent for the Promise Neighborhoods, which are Department of Education grantee. Strive Together is funded in large part by the Ballmer Group and by Blue Meridian Partners. Collectively, those 4 entities control close to $2 billion a year in private philanthropic funding. And all have now visited the Pahoa Promise.
Nice.
And we visited with many of them in DC in June, along with our colleague Camille Masatomi from the State Department of Education, and we are very excited about the possibility.
Terrific. One last question on this is just the timing. For the funding that's already been earmarked and coming, what's the timing on spending that down?
So the disaster relief funds are a 4-year grant, 2027 through 2030, so 4 years, so $8.9 million over 4 years for the county. The earmark, the CDS funding is 250 to 300,000 over 2 years, likely from January 2027 through December 2028.
Okay. Thank you so much. I want to give my colleagues a chance to jump in here with questions as well. And then I'd love to hear from our county department on, obviously they've been key players in all this and going forward. But I would like to yield for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Connolly Kleinfelder.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. A couple questions for you. I love what you're doing. Thank you. Miss Thomas has been here for a while, and always around the outside edges for early childhood education. How many individuals have we trained to be early childhood educators? It's in here, but it dances around, it seems like.
Angela Thomas, Research and Development, County of Hawaii. We have a page. There's, I think, 37 students have graduated. Is this one?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot more than that, though. Yeah. We've provided scholarships through Chaminade University because they provide Montessori education background, and we provided scholarships through Hawaii Community College. I guess 37 have graduated. We have also provided PACE classes, which are modularized unit learning class that you take 4 units and take 4 units of 4 classes, and then you can convert them to credit. So it's a much more you don't have to be on the campus. They're online classes, and we're on our 3rd series of 3 classes each, which all provide the qualifications for what's called a Child Development Associate, which is a CDA. And a CDA basically is the bottom layer of teacher qualifications for the Department of Human Services. So we've done those, and then we have probably, I don't have the numbers with me, I don't know why, but, oh, okay, we've got at least one master's degree student who completed her degree at Chaminade, and then we've done a number of other students through Hawaiʻi Community College that have finished. We have at least 2 more that have finished in AS, and the others are in the process.
Good job.
But we have 6 CDAs that are going to be completed. We have 4 that are completed already and 2 more that are completing in September, by September.
Okay, thank you. And then Pahoa Promise, how does that translate to the rest of the island? I was thinking about the 2, like it's almost like 2 presentations you brought forward.
Yeah, so the training that we do, well, so my job is to provide for the entire island, but the community we selected to work in was Pahoa. So this is a model program in Pahoa, model community-based program. And we selected Pahoa because there was interest in the KKP area, but KKP is huge, and in order to sort of hone in on a community that we could start with and then expand from, we decided on Pahoa. And we had, well, one of the reasons was we had a principal at Pahoa who was ready to go, and she's now our coordinator, on the ground coordinator for the Pahoa Reads program. So Michelle Payne-Arakaki is now our coordinator. She works with us.
And
Sorry, from Parks and Rec, from previous
she was from
The
department.
principal of the
Okay,
DOE.
okay, sorry.
Yeah.
And I think to add on to what Angela is saying is, I think when you look at the sort of the strategy and the vision countywide, right? So there was a need to focus on capacity development. There was a need to focus on workforce development. There was also a need to figure out how to bring healthcare, education, family service or serving organizations, early childhood organizations to actually come together and talk about what is the experience that families are having. Is it disconnected? Is it coordinated? And so it almost is 2 presentations. It's probably more appropriate to say that it's a comprehensive, whatever it takes kind of strategy, and that we could have focused just on workforce. We could have focused just on Pahoa, but Angela's vision is big enough that we were gonna do all of them at the same time.
I think the other thing too, in the selection of Pahoa, we found a community that was ready for us. So they were ready and willing to come together and partner. And it's really interesting because we spent about the first year and a half allowing them to figure out how we should divide up the work. Because we could have gone in and said, hey, you know, you're gonna have 3 committees, healthy, safe, and ready. And they ended up coming up with those committees on their own, but they owned it because they decided these are the 3 buckets we need to work in. And so it took us a while to get them to get there, but now that they own it, they're the ones that drive the work. It's been really exciting to see what they've done, especially now that they're working together. The resources are collaborating.
Thank you. I was looking at some of the pieces of your, the baby steps media kit. And one that stood out to me is I went to a DOE meeting somewhere in the middle of COVID, and they had brought in people from the community to sit with the principal. This is for Waikea-Waina. And what was interesting is that they'd had the kids come back, and as they were re-entering school, they were noticing that the keiki were actually testing higher. And I immediately thought lower, but they said, no, they're coming in, they're testing higher. And the only thing that we could really figure out, because they've been out of school, they're testing, they're doing other stuff online or at home, was that they were actually spending more time with Ohana and on the computer. And somewhere in there, when they came back to school, they were testing higher than they had ever previously before. It was an interesting component of what I think was more family time, hands-on learning with keiki, with their families, actually helped improve testing scores on the back end, which is really interesting. And I was thinking about that as I looked at the rural island model, what Hawaii Island can teach rural, indigenous, specific, and geographically isolated communities. I love that statement, but I almost go back the other way where it's what Hawaii Island, indigenous, Pacific communities can teach the rest of the world. I think, so I'd almost want to reshape that sentence a little bit, because we do things differently here. And the way our ohana works and that DOE experience kind of reshapes how we approach education, and the way the simple wording change can actually redirect how we approach things and what the importance of Hawaii is to what's going on here. Just a thought. And then finally, you know, this is an interesting one. You know, I'm on Facebook, you know. Lori Smith. Are you Lori Smith? So there was a post from about a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, something regarding Iligan, but it was said, sadly, the current mayor doesn't seem to care about early education. This is from you, SMH. What is that? We're here on behalf of early education. What component do you think he's not missing, or he's missing?
I think he's towards early childhood.
Check him out.
So that post was, just for clarity, it was my personal post, but I still stand behind it. The mayor does support early childhood education. The post was in reference distinctly to a situation that I see going on where there's a funding gap. We've spent millions of dollars in ECE to advance Hawaii Island and help our keiki. And now we have about $10 million coming into this island, and I don't see any coordinated staff from the county, and that really concerns me personally as a parent. So that's where that comes from, right? When you've got earmarks coming from the federal government, somebody has to shape that. You can't just turn that over to multiple nonprofits and expect the county's interests are going to be protected, right? You need that coordinated staff, right? You need someone looking out for the county's best interest.
Okay, sorry, could you identify yourself for the record?
So my name is Lori Smith, also Farrell, but that Farrell was my maiden name. I was divorced years ago, and now I go by Lori Smith.
Okay. Yeah,
but many of you know me as Farrell, so.
Yeah, I saw that comment. I was like, it's interesting, since you're like the media person for the Baby Steps program. Just kind of with your insight into what the program is, and that comment and the disconnect between mayor and funding, and from what you just said, I wanted to get your take on that.
Yeah, in my feeling, I think it's just it's not really that they don't support it. It's just a disconnect in between the change of the ARPA funding and now this new funding coming. Where do we go next? How do we support what we've already built? It's not about any one person or any one person's job. It's about the programs that have been built and the relationships, and how do we protect that and go from where we are now and move into this next phase of funding and protect the county's interests. We see the needle moving, right? We see these silos being, when you go to a Pahoa Promise meeting and you see this, there's no silos, right? The silos have been dropped, the data is shared, the issues are shared, and we're solving things at the table and making things happen. You're watching the needle move, right? I don't want to see the needle stop. That's my concern as a parent and a constituent and as a voter on this island.
Okay, and then for you folks, I mean, what are your thoughts on where we stand right now with the funding coming in and the different things that are going on, and our progress as a county?
I mean, as the facilitator for the past 4 years, I've watched a community that came together, right? Started to build, they knew who each other were, didn't necessarily know what each other did. And then as those relationships have strengthened over these past 4 years, how the conversations have shifted to what is it that we can do together? What can we work on together better? That takes coordination. I mean, I am not kama'aina to Hawaii Island. I live on Oahu. I was lucky to be invited into the conversation, to be able to facilitate. And it takes work to pull them together, to coordinate. I think the biggest pieces are to be consistent, and you have to convene them regularly, and you have to provide and create space that it feels safe enough to share information. And as simple as that sounds, it's not you have to keep doing it and you have to keep showing up. And so Angela had referenced that it took us about 1.5 years to get really clear on what does the vision of every keiki in Pahoa look like. If we say the vision is every keiki in Pahoa is healthy, safe, and thriving, what does that mean? What does that look like, right? It means that we have kids who are not overdue on their World Child visits. It means that we are moving the needle on the number of kids who are keeping up with their developmental screenings. It means that we have kids who are entering kindergarten ready to learn. There are some metric points that are in there, but it took 1.5 years for folks to understand what is the landscape of what's happening in Pahoa, what's happening among our families and children, and then does the lived experience that I have as somebody working in this community, right, does that match the data that's publicly available? And how do we move the needle on that? And so we're just at the point where, like, I feel like the flywheel is starting to catch, and so you want to keep that momentum. We've invested tremendously, I think, in building community capacity to understand what is happening in Pahoa, who is in Pahoa, who are the families and children that are in Pahoa, and where do we need to work together to strengthen and shore up places. And so I want to keep that momentum going. And I also think that having had the county be a very active and engaged part of the Pahoa Promise conversation for the past 4 years has been very critical. You know, one of the things in the first 2 years, there was a companion project happening on Oahu in Waimanalo. And Oahu also has an early childhood coordinator, right? Different setup, similar scenario. Both counties have early childhood coordinators. And that Hawaii County had some funding to give to implement, to give to operations, really I think is what jump-started and kind of catalyzed things. And then as partners started to see initial success, and some of that initial success was just, let's get books. I think to your early point, early literacy, building family reading routines at home. Family is your first educator. Even just that, right? To be able to say that we're gonna put some money into having kids go home through Pahoa Library, through the pediatric clinics, through a number of businesses. That, just to be able to say that, to be able to do that it might be one little thing, but it was a start, right? And then the next thing, and then the next thing. And so really the person who's held the vision has been the county. It's been, embodied in Angela, right? So that vision has really driven what has been happening. So I mean, I would love to see, if I can even say that, I would love to see the county, that opportunity to continue to have county's presence in these community place-based initiatives like Pahoa. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Well, I like what you guys are doing. Again, that rural island model, let's work on reshaping that a little bit and really exemplify what Hawaii brings to the table versus the rest of the world, because we have something special here.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. I yield, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Kirkowitz.
Thank you, Chair. Riley and Doug, it's so nice to see you. I really appreciated being invited to the initial conversations and seeing our community partners get to know one another. So many silos, I think, were broken down through this process. So mahalo nui for all of your convening and facilitation. I was curious, and perhaps you said it, maybe I missed it, I'm sorry, but once the initial funding runs out, will Pahoa Promise continue? Is there additional funding to support that in addition to expanding to more communities similar to Pahoa? Funding is always an issue with program continuity.
Yeah. And I think Doug can explain more to it because he was the grant writer behind securing a lot of the funding. I think we were planning and hoping and intending that some of the federal earmark at least and the disaster relief funding could help go towards continuing the opportunity for partners to convene in Pahoa and to continue that work.
Yes. So in a way, we're dancing around an issue, I think, which is that our understanding is that the county will be eliminating the early childhood positions. And so if that were to continue, if that's the direction the county chooses to go, I think we will lose a great deal of continuity. We do have $9+ million secured. And in my view, we have 4 other very interested partnerships on the line that would be continuing sources of funding. I would wish there was a way we could find some bridge funding, or we could front load some of the gap between where we are now. I think ARA dollars have to be returned here in the next month or 2 if there's any dollars left, and I don't think the new money will start probably till February, March. So my understanding is we're looking at a gap, and that's bluntly the issue.
Okay, I'm just sorry, taking that all in. So potential pause in the program until some additional funding comes through, and then the bigger discussion is around the permanency of staff within the county to continue this work, knowing that there is some federal funding coming through.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
And that's not a decision that, or discussion we're going to have today. We're going to focus on like what's happening with the program.
Yes.
So I'm a numbers girl. Really impressive, like with the preventative care, I think it was 36% of families were not, and then that number lowered to 3, like a little under 4%. So a lot more families are in fact getting preventative care. And then there were some of those workforce scholarships that were issued. Was there a commitment that the individual receiving the scholarship would then do work in the Pahoa area? Because if it was for the Pahoa Promise Project, I'm curious about the nexus between, we talk about building capacity for that community. So was there a commitment with the scholarship for these folks to work in Pahoa?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Chelsea Ching with Friends of the Future.
Thank you. Could you just say that into the microphone for the record? Thank you.
Chelsea Ching with Friends of the Future. I am the Early Childhood Programs lead there. I work with Doug. My main focus is workforce development. So I run the apprenticeship program that is funded by the county. And we also house the funding for the scholarships that you're speaking about right now. Those scholarships are island-wide. It's county funding, it's ARPA funding. And so it's not designated to Pahoa. There is a commitment from the folks that do receive scholarship funding from my apprenticeship program and the regular County of Hawaii, the Chaminade and the HCC scholarships, that they have to live and work in the early childhood field on this island, and they commit to 1 year after any class taken.
So there's a benefit to the island, but not,
yes.
but not specifically
It's not
Pahoa.
specific, you were correct.
Okay, that's a helpful clarification. Thank you. And then the books that were distributed, the 23,000, that was to Pahoa Keiki, or was that island-wide? Sorry, I'm just trying to understand like what's Pahoa specific, because we're talking about the Pahoa Promise Project being very successful. So just trying to understand what data is for Pahoa versus island-wide.
Yeah, the 23,000 books is through the Reach Out and Read. That's for island-wide, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And then we also understand that there's such a tremendous need for childcare for the babies, right? I think it was mentioned in the slide. Was it 3 or 5 startups that were supported?
We supported, I also did that program.
Okay, so over 4 years, we were able to support 5 startups?
No.
No,
We only had 1.5 years, really, from when the county released the funds to Friends of the Future. So we would have liked it to be 4 years, but it was not. We supported actually a lot more family child, or we worked with them. We funded 5, and 3 have become licensed.
And
And
the
they are
other two are
located-
still in the process with the Department of Human Services.
And what communities are they located in?
We have one in Pahoa, one in Waimea, and Hilo Town.
Okay, and there was obviously
Oh,
more
no, sorry.
interest than
2
5.
in Hilo and 1 in Pahoa.
Okay.
No, 2 in Waimea, 1 in Pahoa. You know, that have become licensed. Those are the 3 that have become licensed. We are working with 2 in Hilo that are still in the licensing process. So that makes 5.
Yeah, there's a lot to go through
Sorry.
to get licensed. And then in terms of like, you know, tracking the vision for the kinds of thriving, healthy keiki in Pahoa, there are these initial supports that are provided. Are we then also tracking how a youth does over the course of their life? And who is responsible for tracking them?
Yeah, we've been having some of those early conversations with some of the funding that, oh, this is going to get a little bit confusing. So some of the funding has supported more, we call them new mom Kailua groups, right? So Healthy Mothers, Healthy Babies, and Family Hui Hawaii, they came in and created more mommy and me type of interactive programs. And YWCA, specifically in the Pahoa area.
Is that the Mama Hub thing that was mentioned in the report? No, different?
Mama Club?
Mama Hub?
Mama
It was
Hub.
mentioned in your media kit?
Mama Hub? Yeah.
New parent support, is that what that is?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So as part of those early conversations, I think now they're talking to each other, and because that really starts, some of it's almost prenatal, that the conversations now partners are having, like how do we create some kind of an ID card, if you will, to be able to track the child through all the different programs and services, and the family, right, from birth as they participate in all of these programs all the way into kindergarten, and then just continuing to add on. Because after readiness for kindergarten, 3rd grade reading is kind of the next big benchmark that partners seem to be focused on.
You know, and I think another huge factor in ensuring successful outcomes for youth is, are they safe? Do they have shelter? Do they have a strong ohana unit? Is any of that information being tracked? Because without that, you can deliver all these programs and services.
Yep.
It'll help, but I don't think it'll really have the impact you're looking for because all those other really important foundational pieces are not in place.
Yeah. And you were part of those very early conversations.
Those are the things that I brought up then, yeah.
In that first year and a half, when we were working backwards from trying to define what does healthy, safe, and thriving mean, and how do we track that? We had gone through this process with the community to identify the headline indicators, right? Well, first they had identified 36. And then we said, well, as a community, tracking 36 indicators is just too much. And so could we identify 3 to 5 that as a community, we would say, if we're moving the needle on any one or more of these 5, then we know we're making progress towards that bigger impact of every keiki in Pahoa, healthy, safe, and thriving. And the biggest one that we couldn't, as a community that had the hardest time wrapping their heads around really was the safe. Was how do you define safe? And what do you prioritize? Is it food? Is it housing? Is it water security? What is it, right? And so this has been one of the ongoing conversations that the community has continued to have. And so actually tomorrow at the next in-person meeting that we're having for Pahoa, and then the end of year summit, trying to identify what that headline indicator is going to be for what it means when we say keiki are safe has become the priority. And so what we're in the process of doing, I think we've identified that several organizations are tracking the 6 protective factors. And then we learn that they're not tracking, they don't define it all the same way. And they aren't tracking it all the same way. So now the collective conversation becomes, how do we compare what YWCA is collecting with what Neighborhood Place of Puna is collecting, with what PACT is collecting? Everybody has these elements to the bigger piece of the picture, but how do we track it and then put it together so that it actually shows a story, right, that the community can look at? And we've been doing that with a number of the different data measures. Yeah.
You know, I'm curious. You know, many years have gone into supporting our Pahoa community, and I'm really grateful. And I think we're telling a really nice story today about the wins, and we absolutely have to celebrate the wins. But I think we would be remiss if we did not talk about the challenges and barriers that were faced that could be or could not be overcome. And so I'm curious about if this model is going to be taken to other communities, and if the idea is to continue to do the work and deepen it within Pahoa, what are the lessons we're learning that we have to carry forward? What didn't work, right? Like, how are we going to iterate this process to keep that in mind so that we're not making the same mistakes in other communities? I don't, Doug's like chomping at the bit to maybe answer that.
Yes.
I really appreciate your questions, and I think we have lost sleep over the same questions as well. And circling back just for 1 second, we do have a data sharing agreement with the Department of Education for individual level student data in both Kaneopoko and Pahoa Elementary to look at kindergarten readiness and third grade achievement scores. And so that is a helpful way for us to start to see the relationship between certain configurations of interventions and school readiness and school success in one kind of crude measure. We also have engaged an outside evaluator, Shelley May, with the Alihi Alliance to do an assessment of the limitations, the speed bumps, the roadblocks, the lessons learned from the Pahoa initiative. And she's been working with us over the last 6 months. And her report should be ready here in the next, she said August, so I'm hoping in the next few weeks.
And just, I love I appreciate that there's going to be some like kilo and reflection here. If you're thinking about when we first started and where we are now, like, how would you grade that? Do you want to give like a score? Would you say that we're like 50% there? How far has this community come? And how close are they to this vision that's been created?
This is a great group participation moment, I think. So as one voice in the conversation, and actually having watched other communities go through this same process in different parts of the country, I feel, in my judgment, I guess I would say, in terms of developing a sense of collective identity and developing a consistent platform where different partners in the work understand how they fit into the work and they see themselves in the work, we're 40% of the way there. In terms of our understanding and ability to say that children are in better shape than they were when we started the project on the key indicators associated with health, family safety, and school readiness, I'd say we're 15 to 20% of the way there. And I think so much of that is, first of all, is good news because it takes the time it takes. And, we're not going to paddle the canoe till everyone's in the canoe. And so we're working on this together. But I also think that, there's a lot more work to do.
Thank you for your honesty. I'm out of time. I yield.
Councilmember Hustis.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Marlene. I appreciate the presentation and really diving into the positive impacts of the ARPA funds that were presented to communities, specifically the Pahoa Promise. It really showcased with bringing up different team members here and the relationship with the county. I mean, it really is collaborative effort between not just who's here in the space, but the families, community members, educators, facilitators that are all participating in this. I guess some of the questions I have are more on the financial side of things. And Doug, you talked a little bit about, Marlene, you talked about these other partnerships and potential philanthropy. These are contingent upon these other dollars that are coming into the county, though. Is that what I'm understanding? So Save the Children, Strive Together, COSASA, Weinberg, they're all kind of waiting in the wings until some of this is more applied to Pahoa Promise and other sort of models that we're trying to present to community?
Not necessarily. These are ongoing relationships that we have been working on for 5 years. And so, you know, as our colleague at Strive Together, we were at the National Strive Together meetings in June. And as our colleague there put it, funders are, in a sense, circling, looking for places to land. They're looking for proof of concept. They're looking for opportunities to make a difference. Strive, Partners for Rural Impact, ECS, and Save the Children all are using very similar metrics for understanding their movement forward, and they include kindergarten readiness and third grade reading. And so I think our focus is dead on. I think our commitment to supporting the development of kids in rural, underserved communities is exactly in alignment. I think the energy we've built has been based on a truthful story, and I think that appetite is real.
And it's been from what they've seen with Pahoa Promise, because they have attended each of them.
That's the critical piece, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
it's
the proof of concept.
Right, exactly. These are actionable things that are happening in community.
Yep.
So with future investment and with the partnerships you're building with COSASA, Weinberg, I mean, they would only continue to support if something's actively going on in community, that there's going to see that impact, that positive impact in community. So I guess, I mean, that's where my concern is, this gap period for sure, because Marlene, I think you mentioned it before, maybe Councilmember Kleinfelder asked it about what happens with ARPA dollars at the end of this calendar year for Pahoa Promise specifically. Could you reiterate that? Because you mentioned the hope for these other funds, and yeah, those are on the way, right? But we have this transition period, and we have to kind of work through this. But so what does that look like for Pahoa Promise specifically come December?
I mean, we'll have the end of year summit the end of October, and then I think there's potentially a gap between the end of October and February, potentially, right? Where there has not been funding identified currently. And so usually what comes out of that end of year summit are usually partner commitments. There's energy and enthusiasm around some initiatives that they want to take together as a collaborative. And that would probably have to be paused until some funding is secured.
The federal earmark, the timeline for that one, you said it's a 2-year commitment, but when does that date kind of initiate?
Those dollars are available now, and Early Childhood Action Strategy is negotiating with each county for the distribution of those dollars. So they could be available. Again, our colleague is in better position to talk about this than I am.
I'll bring up Director in just a moment, but I'm curious about, you have these sort of partnerships, national partnerships, private philanthropy, but we also have partnerships here on island, right? We have community members that are stepping forward, but what is that space? And Ms. Thomas, I think maybe you could speak to this a little bit on the workplace partnerships and opportunities we have there to really support families where they're working in community. I don't know if you want to share a little bit about that and where kind of these next steps could go and the potential there.
I think the ARA money can be used for, some of it for PAHOA though as well. So I think that's something we could continue, at least a piece of the work. I also wanted to mention that Save the Children, and this, before I answer your question,
Sure.
Save the Children has a small piece of the earmark, and they'll be supporting ECAS in the work that they are doing right now to identify 4 communities in new counties. But they also have a part-time position, because they're only doing part-time with ECAS, they also have a part-time position to support Hawaii Island. So I think, or Hawaii County. So that's one of the things that they're looking at. They're very, okay, I'm bragging here. They're very impressed with PAHOA Promise and the work that we've been able to do in the community and the auxiliary work that we've done around it in terms of workforce development and supporting other programs. So they've become interested in our island and using our work as a model. So we're very excited about that. And they're in the process of hiring somebody right now at the local level to be based in Hawaii to do that work. So that's it. In terms of your question, I think if you want to speak about the disaster recovery money, part of it is to do something about capacity building for childcare in the burn zone, which happened to be in the Kailua-Kona area. So one of the things that I was thinking of when we submitted the request for funds was to do something about a childcare center for hotel employees down on the coast. There are already, I did a survey of, just a brief survey, there's over 250 children of existing employees under the age of 5. And the school we were thinking of is a 4-classroom childcare center that would have infants, toddlers, and preschool children. I've already had conversations with the managers of all the hotels. They're all in need. They have staffing openings. They've had them for years. They're very interested in something. And I think the time is right because there's a tax incentive at the federal level that will, they'd be able to recoup some of their investment should they invest in the childcare center or supporting employees in their costs. So that's part of it. The other part of it would be to continue workforce development because you could build facilities, but unless you have staff to be in them to welcome the children, you know, it's not, it doesn't work that way. So we're very excited about the students that we've moved forward. I just want to give you an example. In Waikoloa, for instance, they have, it's the one school, Waikoloa Baptist, and they have 2 classrooms, but they have 4 staff, only 1 teacher. So they could only operate 1 classroom, 24 children. So we've been able to, through the apprenticeship program that Chelsea runs, we've been able to train up 2 CDAs. They just got their CDA credential. They're going to be able to open their 2nd classroom. So there'll be 24 more children enrolled probably in the fall. So while we're talking about, so there's 2 kinds of capacity development. One is building buildings. The other one is just filling the buildings that have been empty because of COVID. So they used to have a robust enrollment, and because parents had to stay home with their children, a lot of women left the field because they had to take care of their even elementary age children. So we've lost a lot of staff in that process. So one of my charges in my scope of work originally when I started with the county was to rebuild the capacity to at least COVID levels and beyond. But so that's what we're trying to do. Yeah, no,
I think it's an amazing picture, an opportunity for economic development, workforce development. So thank you for highlighting that, Angela. Yeah. Director Medina, if you could join us up here in the front for a moment. Thank you. Just curious on the position of the department. You know, we're hearing the presentation about the work that's being done in community, the other possibilities around the county, and my colleagues here have experienced it longer than I have in terms of the ARPA dollars and the timeline of that, the challenges the county's faced with it in previous administration, all of those issues. So I'm kind of curious what that timeline looks like at the end of the year here, and where you kind of perceive the next steps to support initiatives that are already up and running, that are already in community, that we already have connections built, that we already have collaboration, you know, going across the county. I'm just kind of curious. You know, we had about what, $5 million from the ARPA dollars going to specifically the early child education. $9 million we kicked out elsewhere for one reason or another. So I'm kind of curious what your position is on that. Is there anything left in there? We're throwing some back to the feds. I'm just kind of want to unpack that a little bit.
Okay. Benson Medina, Director, Research and Development. So the ARPA funding that funds basically the program that Angela does, it expires on December 31st of this year. So there is no additional funding after that. Now, Angela and her team, actually, there was some disaster relief funding that came down, I guess it was about a year ago, and they applied for it and received it. And I believe it was like $45 million. Now, the segment of that funding that is supposed to come, or we've been told that it's going to come to Hawaii Island, is almost $9 million, $8.9 million. So when we were informed, I think sometime this summer, that yeah, this funding will be there, they didn't tell us exactly when it would be there, and they didn't define the scope of what those funds could be used for. So when we inquired about it, they said, well, we are developing the scope of what those funds are right now, but we don't know, and they detailed a process. You know, we have to get this approval, and then it has to go to that committee, and I'm not exactly sure, and probably Angela knows it better than me. And when all of that is done, then those funds will be available to the county. So when we ask, do you have any idea? And they don't. Now, they did say, so perhaps the county can, you know, bridge finance it until these funds arrive. So then our response was, okay, can you give us an estimate of what that is? Because obviously I can't go to the mayor and say, can we bridge fund this for an, you know, indeterminate amount of time until these funds arrive. So we had hoped when we were informed that there would be funding, that it would come before the end of the year. So at the first that I heard of it, it could come by the end of this year, so that there wouldn't be much of a gap. And so this gap that they're talking about is a gap between the end of the ARPA funding and the beginning of the disaster relief funding. So that's kind of where we're at. In fact, we just, or Angela just got an email from the administrator, which she sent on to me, that basically just detailed the process that they're going through, but they give no details in terms of when that funding would be available to us, or the scope of work that that funding is supposed to cover. So we're not even sure what it can cover. So I don't know, Angela, if you have more to add on that, that's what I got, in at least in what I was copied in on the email list of that.
And the federal earmark could assist as well, though?
Excuse me?
The federal earmark, the $300,000 for Hawaii County, could assist with some of that?
Yeah, I'm talking specifically about this disaster relief funding, but the $300,000, I'm not really sure about that one.
Okay. I'm just trying to dig a little bit in terms of seeing what, with these kind of commitments, possibilities, as well as partnership and philanthropy, like, how can we all bundle this so that we can have continuity, right?
Right.
That we don't have this stutter and kind of a break in services, or having to restart programming, those sort of things.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to patch it all together.
Yeah, so believe me, between us and these guys back here, they're shaking every tree that's available out there to see if we can keep the programs going, don't have a loss of continuity. So I can only really deal with what the county has and what's coming into the county. And so, you know, like I said, the ARPA funding that was designed for early childhood education, it expires on December 31st. Now, as far as Angela's position that goes forward with the county, we did submit a supplemental to basically take her position and put it on as a county position. But as you know, the mayor did not approve any positions throughout the county, new positions. Because we were aware that at the end of December 31st, the funding of her program would end. I mean, we're gonna try again this year, but we'll see what happens.
Okay. All right.
So I don't know, Angela, if you want to add anything on to that? Did I miss anything? Okay. And
okay. Thanks,
Angela
Director.
said I
I
didn't
appreciate your
miss anything.
perspective, and
yeah,
in partnership in this, and like I said, I just think we need to find a way, whatever the mechanism, into like that continuity, try and patch these things together somehow. I mean, where we have community members that are reliant upon services or that consistency in education, and it speaks to what you've shared in council and community before about economic development, workforce development. This is how we support our community, through this different lens that we don't always think about, but it's there. It's supporting our workforce right there in some of these entities and places. So there is that possibility, and we just need to kind of move forward on some of these things. So
We agree, and I think, like I said, the mayor does support early childhood. Okay, that's the buzz.
I got 2 buzzes, so
time's up.
That means you can start again.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Chair. I'll pass it on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Kimball.
Thank you. I'm going to ask just a couple of brief questions, and I would ask all of you to be succinct because we're very tired. And I appreciate the comment earlier that we're dancing around a key issue, which is this position, which I think all of us think is critical to continuing to coordinate this issue. So, Director, just to be a succinct yes or no, the council has the ability to draft a budget amendment that would fund the position and continue it. Would you be supportive if that was initiated from the council side of that budget amendment?
I would, as long as it works within the mayor's budget. So I have to support whatever the mayor puts forward as a budget.
Given at this point in time, we have several budgeted positions across the county that have yet to be filled. We can anticipate a minimum of 3 months each for, advertisement.
Sure.
All of that. We can probably come up with sufficient funding to support at least through the remainder of the fiscal year. So given that, you would support
I would, yes.
that continuation. Okay, I will submit to my colleagues that I think that this is fundamentally necessary. What Councilmember Inaba and Kirkwitz earlier today introduced the bill, kind of reframing what R&D does around economic development. You have 5 moms on this council. All of them would tell you that childcare is economic development. I was able to go back to work because I had a reliable place for my kids to go. And more often than not, that child rearing responsibility falls to the women in the household. And not having reliable childcare where your kids are safe is a huge barrier to women returning to the workforce who could contribute. So I see it entirely, and I know you do too, because we've had these conversations. I see it entirely in alignment with the objective of the county to reframe R&D as a economic development engine to focus and continue to provide support for early childhood education. So I will leave it there, and I will work with my colleague who I believe also shares this interest in introducing the budget amendment to continue that position in the county. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Inaba?
Thank you. Just want to make sure we went all over the place today, but when it comes to our early childhood education, what we've been operating on was the ARPA funding that in the end, we contracted out through an RFP to Friends of the Future.
Yep.
The contract expires, I believe, originally at the end of September, but was granted an extension to the end of October. Is that correct? I'm seeing nods so far. So in terms of what the deliverables were, now maybe I can clarify, the funds that were given to Friends of the Future are separate from the contract employment with Ms. Thomas, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so Ms. Thomas is our county point person who oversees and is working together with Friends of the Future to administer the funding that we gave out, 2.2 million or something like that. Okay, so Ms. Thomas, then can you walk us through what deliverables, being that we're coming up on the end of the contract, what deliverables are we still needing to achieve by the end of the contract term, October 31st, 2026?
So Friends of the Future has 3 separate contracts. One is to manage Pahoa Reed's One is for the Chelsea's work with the apprenticeship model, so it's a workforce development contract. It's the apprenticeship model and our conference. So our conference this year is September 11 and 12, which is why they ended up with the extension. And I believe Friends of the Future's extension is until the end of September to complete the conference, and then their reporting has to be in by October 15th. We also have another contract with them for family childcare, which has been completed. All we need is the report in, and then that will be done. The other contract is with CSS, which is Collaborative Support Services, and that's a branch, or that's ECAS, and they manage Marlene's work. It gets confusing. Marlene's work for Pahoa Promise, which is the sort of facilitation of the community. And so that contract has been extended through the end of October because the end of year summit is on October 28th. And their report will be in mid-November. So we have four contracts, I guess. So I created the RFPs, and these are the people that got the awards. And then we have two others, one with a kahiao, which is well, it's family childcare. It's kind of like a preschool up at Hui Ranch. And they increased their numbers from 6 to 12. So they have 2 family childcare licenses. So that was one of our successes. And then the other contract is with the YWCA, and they are buying a modular building that will allow 35 more children to be enrolled.
Okay, so if we look at our family center childcare startups, and maybe I can get some clarification. I thought it was one contract with different sets of scopes of services. Is it 4 separate contracts?
3, yes. Right? Yeah.
I'm only seeing one agreement here that covers all of the scope. So,
well, Friends of the Future, they were the only bidder, so they ended up with 3 different RFPs. They responded to 3 different RFPs.
but it was batched as one contract, one agreement. Do we have somebody in Hilo Chambers from Finance Department?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Oh, no Hilo Chambers, okay. All right, so when it comes to the family childcare startups, I believe the scope of services says that we were to increase the number of family childcare providers by 8 to 10 per year. Where did we land with that?
Oh, that's what Chelsea was saying. We supported 8 of them. There are 3 that are licensed and 2 more that are going through the process. And the big holdup, the challenge, if you will, is the Department of Human Services. Their licensing is difficult.
Okay, so a total, sorry, of how many? Either completed
5,
or
5
in process?
hopefully, 3 for sure.
Okay.
And we were working with, yeah.
And then when it comes to the training and apprenticeships, how many workshops did we complete in total? Because I believe there are 2 to 3 3 annual conferences and 2 to 3 workshops.
Right. Actually, our 3rd conference is in September, and we've done a number of workshops around literacy that have been open to island-wide for people to participate in. We just did our last one, July 25th.
Okay. And then where have we been sending out that information? Is that something that the county has taken the lead on, or is the Friends of the Future has taken the lead on?
Yeah, we have a mailing list that Friends of the Future is sort of managing for us because Chelsea does the conferences, and that's our largest participation. So anybody that comes to conferences or our workshops gets added to the list. And then Lori's our media person, so she sends it out through social media.
Okay.
Oh, and then it's on our website, our R&D, right.
Okay.
That R&D website.
And but there is one more, conference that's happening?
Correct, September 11 and 12, King Kamehameha Hotel.
Okay. I think that's been kind of a missing link because I just don't feel like we've been notified to help push out some of these conferences. So I think that one's going to be during our own council conference on Maui for September. But definitely, as we look to the future, I think we really need to try and see how we can better close the gap on communication to help get the word out. And then lastly, can you just recap how many positions we funded through this ARPA funding through Friends of the Future across these 3 different areas that we granted funding to?
There are 2 people who aren't here today, so there are 8 of us, or 8 altogether, and Marlo and I are with the county, so 6.
Okay. And then would you mind sending us, so the last report to your office from Friends of the Future came when?
We're waiting, the July 5th one is late, so that's the one we're waiting for.
Okay. When do you anticipate getting that?
Tomorrow? Oh, tomorrow.
Okay, and then that'll cover everything thus far, or is that just for a certain
No, it's
period?
probably the quarter, right? April to June.
Okay, so
And then
would
there'll be
you,
another report in October.
and that would be for the final?
Right.
Okay. So based on the reports you have so far, I will circle back to my original question, is what work have we not accomplished that was set forth in the scope of services that the agreement
I think
set to accomplish? Like, what's the biggest ones that we didn't get to that we should have gotten to from your perspective?
I think family childcare, we wish we could have opened more because it allows 2 children under 2. And that was part of the problem because we wrote that into the RFP, that if you wanted us to help you build your fence or buy your startup equipment, you needed to accept 2 children under 2. And a lot of people didn't want to do that. So they didn't come to us for support. I think that was the big issue, which I don't get, but you know, I love babies. So yeah, I think that was our biggest disappointment. The other ones are our apprenticeship model. I mean, people are looking to us to find out how we did it because we have 8. The original group that started the apprenticeship model in Honolulu, it's Keohokālole, and they're doing it within their own organization. They currently have 2 apprentices. We started it here. We changed up the model a bit, and we have 8 in 4 different preschools across the island. So people are looking to us to see how we did it.
So we have a MOA with Keohokālole.
Yeah, I think so. Is that what it is? Yeah, Chelsea?
You gotta come up front, please.
They're a sponsor. So they have the national, they're registered nationally with the Labor Department, and then they're registered locally. And so they had to get an extension for them to be allowed to have apprentices outside of Keohokālole. And so we're the only island that does it.
So we don't have a MOA with
Yeah, we do.
them?
Well, yeah, we have an agreement with them to be sponsored by them.
Okay, and then because you're saying that our apprenticeship model is something that people are asking us about, do we have something drafted up that describes how the model works?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and where is that available?
That's what Chelsea uses when she recruits new schools to participate.
Okay, perfect. So would you mind updating the council after they get their report in tomorrow? Looking at the scope of services that were articulated in the agreement as to what thing, just real clear, what was for sure accomplished, how was it accomplished, and then if it wasn't accomplished, are we going to accomplish it before the end of the contract, or where are we going to land? Because it gives us a good idea. I mean, early childhood education is important to everyone here, mother or not. But I think if we're going to have this discussion about moving forward with the ECE position or funding and that sort, I think we really need to get an understanding of how this 2.2 million played out over the course of the contract and what services we did accomplish and what scope of services we fell short on and why.
Sure.
Director?
Could I ask you to call Chelsea up to make a couple more clarifications?
Sure, Chelsea, if you want to come forward to provide us a little bit more.
So the family child care startup, it was not as planned, as Angela said. We have closed that. not because we wanted to, but because I am not physically able to spend any more money. And we are returning 50% of that grant back to the county for wastewater. I don't know what they're gonna use it for, or what you guys are gonna use it for, but we will be returning it, I think on Friday, actually. So that is closed down, done.
Sorry, remind us what amount was that and for what program? The training and
That's
apprenticeship?
for family childcare startup grant with Friends of the Future. So it was originally $310,000 for that contract that Friends of the Future received. And we were only, I don't know the exact number, I don't have it written down right now, but we were only able to spend about half of it. Oh no, a little more than half. I would say like 60% of it on startup cost.
And the primary reason for that was?
I worked with more than 8 folks. I've been in Ocean View, I've been in Kona, I've been all over the island, and we've had at least 3 of them say, I cannot deal with DHS. I will not continue. I cannot deal with it. And that's especially on the east side of the island. They were set to go and they said, I cannot deal with the DHS workers. And I cannot do this, and I cannot have to do this, because they check on you every year. And they left the program before I began to fund them. So it's been a big challenge.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll just wrap up by saying, you know, I do want to thank Friends of the Future for stepping up to take in this funding. What I'm concerned about is the lack of outreach we received from within the county to try and make connections in our communities. We have one whole section of this agreement that was for Pahoa. Awesome. But I was never contacted to see what connections we could make within our own Kona community. And I don't know how exactly it played out between Friends of the Future, Ms. Thomas, director, anyone else working in the department, but I feel like we missed an opportunity getting the funds out originally. You folks were our saving grace to try and still have those funds go to good use, and yet we found ourselves again at the end having to return funds with not anything to show for it. So I think Director and Ms. Thomas, the outreach to the council and our specific communities needs to improve if we are going to be continuing with this ECE. But thank you again to Chelsea and each of you who have managed different parts of this program to help us try and move the needle. Thank you.
Councilmember Villegas.
Yeah, just kind of one quick suggestion and something just started. Something that's just come up for me in this is, you know, the communication. And from a personal and professional standpoint, I would humbly advise that you have some conversations within your organization on what comments are helpful and hurtful from people you employ to manage your communication strategies at a time when this current administration and you guys are navigating budget cuts and whatnot. We have free speech and whatnot, but we have to do the same amongst ourselves in what we make comments on social media, and take a look at that strategy and that plan, because I'm hearing from Councilmember Inaba that it's not as effective as we would like it to be for you. And I would hate for anything to have come back negatively based on the avenues of where you're allocating resources. Communication is a viable expenditure for any project or program, especially in this wild world of digital and social media, but relationship building so that we can connect and get you the avenues and resources. Having been a single mom who had to find childcare, and thankfully I had my mom who could help me so I could work at night for those times, but my daughter had a baby last week, and she starts the nursing program next year. So we're going to be juggling as a family for, you know, Lord knows we need medical care providers here. So support the cause fully and wholeheartedly, and just hope that you take my humble recommendations for improvements in those capacities.
Am I allowed to ask a question?
Yeah.
From Friends of the Future, but how is it that we should get information to you folks directly? Like, is there like a path? Because we try to go through the mayor a lot and say, hey, you know, we have this coming up. Can you?
Sure.
Because I'm
Totally, and this is one of the challenges in government, because
what is the avenue that we should take?
Emailing us directly.
Okay.
I get emails from nonprofit organizations all the time with their newsletters or their specific asks or their events or those different things, and then each of us tend to have our own email lists that we then share out with members of our community and constituents, so that kind of helps it spread just that little bit more. And, you know, you got the legislative and the administrative branch, and the beauty of the creation of this government system, there are reasons for that separation, but, you know, times like this is when we want that connectivity in order to get your message out there better. All right, thank you, I yield.
Thank you. Thank you, really, all of you, for all you do. Such an important part of keeping our society going in these times. And I do hope you guys come out to Ka'u more, because we do need lots of help out there. I joke around with my daughter that, like, nobody does urchins better than Ka'u, which is both a testament to, like, their families, but also a little bit of, you know, a need that we have for more early childhood education. And I really admire the work that you folks are doing, connecting folks together and bringing out the best and the more capacity in the network of people that are trying to work in this area that is so essential. So thank you so much. All in favor of closing file on Communication 979, please say aye. Any opposed? That is 6 ayes with council members Hustis, Kirkowitz, and Unishi excused. And that brings us to the end of our agenda. And we'll be back at 9 a.m. for council tomorrow.
Thank you. Are you guys going on?